One of my favorite things about our car flipping forum is meeting and learning from others in the car flipping business. My guest today is Vic-45, an experienced and successful car flipper in the great state of Texas. Vic has a unique approach to our business, which has served him well. He took the time with me to share some information that you may not hear anywhere else. If you buy and sell vehicles for a profit or you want to, you're in the right place. This is the Flipping Genius podcast. Our number one goal is to help our listeners make more money. Every episode, we share information, ideas, and experiences of real-life car flippers. I'm Randy Lee. I'm the host of Flipping Genius. I've flipped cars most of my life. For over a dozen years now, I've been a licensed dealer. I am working to build the best podcast about successfully flipping cars for a consistent profit. Let's get to it, flippers. I want to welcome Vic-45. He's a car flipper from Texas, and he's got some great experience, and he's going to share some of that with us. He's a member of the car flipping forum. That's where I believe that he heard about this, and I'm so pleased that you reached out to us, Vic, and agreed to share some of your information. Because one thing that I think a lot of us think is that what we know everybody knows, but it's absolutely not true. I know that you're going to be able to share a lot of information, and I'm gonna ask you to repeat what you were just telling me. I'm calling Vic-45, and because that number stuck out in my head after we talked. Can you give us the significance of that number, Vic?
Sure, Mr. Lee. So 45 days is just a metric that I picked up from another used car dealer, and they kind of explained to me that they like to see a car come from the time that they pick it up from the auction to the time it's sold as 45 days. And within 45 days, you should be able to determine whether or not the vehicle needs, if it's priced correctly for the market, if it needs more recon, or if there's at all demand for a vehicle of that type in the market that you're in. Different regions have different demands for different vehicles, and they vary strongly, especially in the $5,000 to $7,000 range.
Mm-hmm.
So within 45 days, you should be able to make a determination as to whether or not you can make a profit on that vehicle, or if you should just wholesale it or try to run it back to the auction.
That's a great rule, and believe me, there's been some times when I could have used that bang. If I'd have thought that rule, I wouldn't have hung onto that car for 4 months or something like that. But it's a simple one, and I appreciate that. Hey, before I say it, because I know you're going to say it if I don't say it first, is we make our money when we buy. Can you tell me about where you find your deals, Vic?
Yeah, absolutely. So I use Craigslist and I use Facebook Marketplace, and I don't really, my desktop's not ready to share, but in preparation for a meeting, I did pull up a few ads on Craigslist as well as Facebook Marketplace, which I saved. And this will segue us to some of the basic metrics that anyone could use to find a deal in a $5,000 to $7,000 range, where the $5,000 to $7,000 would be the final sale price of the vehicle. And you, at the same time, you could look to make my expected profit, which is about $2,500 per car. So I went ahead and got on Craigslist. We'll do Craigslist first. Went ahead and got on Craigslist. If you want to follow me, Mr. Lee, Nashville. So I know that's a city that's close to you. So I wanted to use metrics from your area. So when we go onto Craigslist, we're going to search by owner, cars and trucks by owner. And then what I do is I type in the oldest car, or the oldest year. On the left box, we'll type in 2008. And then the maximum price we're going to type in is $5,000. This metric, I cannot, and it seems so simple, but this metric I've made a ridiculous amount of money on, because you're not competing with the bottom end of people looking for that $1,000 or maybe $500 automobile, which, I mean, that market doesn't even exist anymore, really. And while at the same time, you're still going to capture that customer that's looking for a $5,000, $6,000, maybe a $7,000 automobile that they'll pay within cash, and they'll be open to it being a little bit higher mileage, or not really in perfect condition. So the first vehicle that I saw In Nashville, Castilian Springs was a 2008 135i BMW. This car, the gentleman first listed it like 2 weeks ago. It's a non-runner, but it's a clean title, 140,000 miles, and the guy wants $3,000. So I don't know if you know anything about these cars, but a 2008 135i with a red interior like this car retails for, in my area, between $6,500 and $8,000. These are wholesale prices. So this car could sell very quickly. He says it cranks and doesn't run. So, you know, if you're absolutely inept, just throwing a motor at it, you know, you could still make $2,500 pretty easily. I would say a typical turnaround time to sell this car with a red interior is 3 weeks, at least in my area in Central Texas.
So you typed in that the oldest car you want to look at was a 2008.
Yes.
And the lowest, the highest price was $5,000.
Correct. Yeah, and it's very simple, and I use this metric in every geographical area. And when I lived in the Midwest, I used it extensively, and I made a ridiculous amount of money because.
And you were looking at Craigslist.
This is Craigslist, yeah, Craigslist Nashville to be specific.
Okay.
So you know, when people listen to this podcast, even tomorrow or maybe a week from now, these cars are probably still going to be here. The second one that I saw in Nashville was a 2010 Lincoln MKZ and the guy wants $1,250 or best offer. It's a clean title with 163 on it. It's all leather interior. It's a Fusion, but one MKZ. It's got aluminum wheels. It has a little bit of scratches on the bumper, and it needs a motor. It's a 3.5. So I did look on carpart.com, which is a website that I use often, car-part.com.
Exactly.
And the motor for that engine, actually in Huntsville, in your area out there, is $750 from the junkyard. So this car, if you pick it up for $1,000, you throw a motor in there for $750, maybe a few more other things, maybe throw 4 tires on there for $250. You can sell this car for $5,000. And you could see Fusion SELs in your area, Huntsville specifically, 2010 to 2012, are selling between $4,500 and $6,000. And this is a Fusion SEL. It's a Lincoln MKZ. So the guy wants $1,000. So, that's a car that I would buy. And it's, you buy it, you have maybe $2,500 in it for recon. You're going to sell it for $5,000. You make your $2,500. Typical turnaround time to sell this car is 30 days. So
yeah, I've got one of those right now on my lot.
Yeah, that's a buy.
It gets a lot of attention. Yeah, that seems good. Now it is, if you are doing the work, do you do all the engine work yourself?
Yes, and only because I don't have any interest in trying. One, I don't have a whole lot of interest in trying to find a tech who's going to do the hard mechanical. And two, the rent rates in the city where I live in Central Texas are so high that mechanic labor is going to be inherently high. And when I lived in the Midwest, we have a lot of rust issues there in Northeast Ohio. Mechanic labor was also very high. So if you live in an area where mechanic labor is very high, you could, that's a guaranteed signal for profit. You're going to find these $2,500 cars, and they're not, $2,500 profit cars all the time. And today is February 14th. So we are technically in tax season. And here's 2 deals on Craigslist. They're ready to go right now that you got fixed in less than a month and get $2,500 each. So.
And I'm going to jump in here too. I don't think it's the question I had on my sheet, but I remember when we talked. Now, I'm going to ask you this, and then if you say no, I'll have to go back and edit it out. You're an accountant by trade, correct?
My profession is an accountant. Yeah, by trade, my profession is an accountant. By trade, I'm a diagnostician. So what I do is electronics, specifically on an automobile, like any electrical work on a car. That's my trade. Okay,
but you're an accountant. That's what you do.
Yeah,
your daytime hours or whatever.
Yes.
Because the reason I'm bringing that up, Vic, is you mentioned that you look at these cars from a different standpoint that I've ever heard anybody else say it. You look at the car as a break-even thing, and you make your profits off of the work that you do, like replacing an engine. Is that?
Yes.
So can you elaborate a little bit on that? Because I thought that was pretty interesting.
Sure. And let's talk about, we'll we'll do a real life example, like with this Lincoln MKZ. So when I sell the car, when I purchase the car for $1,000, I would sell the car when I price it in for the price. I look at every activity that I do on the vehicle as a profit point. And then I look at selling the car for what I bought it for, or maybe just a little bit at a loss. So when I sell this MKZ for $5,000, I'm going to go ahead and make every decision that I do to the car in terms of recon, and recon means recondition.
Right.
Every decision that I make, I'm going to view that as an individual opportunity to extract profit. So therefore, I can make, on every decision, such as say replace motor, I could sit down and I could say, okay, am I going to make enough money in profit from just the replacement of the motor activity to where it makes sense for me to buy the car? Or can I just, if I really am itching to replace a motor, can I just put an ad on Craigslist or Facebook and say, hey, I'll replace your motor for $500, bring your car? I'm always trying to make that decision where I could say, does it make sense for me to perform this specific activity and buy the car, or would it make more sense for me to just to go out and petition to fix someone else's car and charge them a market rate or a little bit below market rate? So if it does not make sense, like if my profit margin is so thin where I'm only profiting maybe $500 to $700 on markup to replace a motor, then I'm not going to touch the car, because I can go out, petition on Facebook, petition and say, hey, mobile mechanic, I'll do heavy mechanical work and replace the motor, and I'll make that money much easier and not tie up capital to purchase the actual car and take the risk and deal with the sale and the paperwork. I'm not going to do that.
Yeah,
so
it makes a lot of sense. And I think it's interesting because you approach it from a different standpoint. I mean, you're an accountant. I'm a marketing major. I'm the one that Dilbert always makes fun of. And I want to stay on track, but it's fascinating what you do there, and I want to go back. So you'd mentioned Craigslist. What about Facebook? How do you what kind of filters do you use there?
Okay, let's talk about Facebook. I don't know if you ever saw it or not, but people can also look this up when they go and look this podcast up. So today is February 14th, 2022. I went ahead and looked up Huntsville in your area, and here are the vehicles I'm seeing. So there's in Huntsville, Alabama, there's a 2003 Cadillac CTS 4-door. It's $1,500. It's got 98,000 original miles with a clean title. And the guy says it doesn't run, doesn't give any other details. It looks good. Looks like it needs a buff. Interior is mint. Leather's good. I mean, this car's $3,500. So I use the same metrics. I use 2008 and newer. I use $5,000 and under. And then when I go sort the ads, so when you search on the top right on your cell phone on the app, when you're looking, it'll have filter and then it'll have sort. So when I start sorting, I sort by oldest first. Therefore, you can see all the little cars that have been hanging around that nobody wants to really get into, and that's where you find your your absolute deals. Here's a 2008 BMW 5 Series 528i sedan, 161,000 miles. That's in Hazel Green, Alabama. This guy says the tranny slips in first. He wants $1,800. The interior is white and in excellent condition. The car is black. So this car retails for $5,000. It is a 528, but it's got a sunroof. It's got mint gray interior. It's got very nice black paint. Sounds like it needs a transmission. You can find these transmissions for $500 pretty much all day, every day. There's an opportunity where you can make $3,000 right then and there. Negotiate the guy. He wants $1,850, give him $1,500. Right. He'll take it. So this is something I found in Huntsville just this morning. There's also an 06 Chevrolet Impala LT sedan. It's in pretty good shape. The guy says the tranny's slipping in first. Now it is a cloth. He wants $1,500. It's a clear title. I mean, that car is $3,500 during tax season all day. So you can find these transmissions for $350, $400. Same metrics. So today in tax season, that we're officially in tax season, we found using Facebook and Craigslist, just going out this morning, we found 6 cars 5, 6 cars, you can go out and make $2,500 in 1 month. You can buy either one of them and make $2,500.
And what about that 45 days? Is that enough time for you, with given that you have other things in your life other than just flipping cars? Does that give you enough time to turn it around?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, I'll give it myself a week for recon. So, and then about 30 days to sell, because it's tax season. 30 days is a drastic overstatement. These cars are probably most of these cars, if priced 10 to 15% under average going market rate, you will sell them in 14 days. And the reason why is when you go list them first on Facebook, you'll go ahead and list them. There will be a lot of people that will be looking. People don't always have the money right away, but they'll get paid next week. And that's when they'll have the money. So yeah, about 2 weeks, you'll sell these cars.
But one other thing I wondered about, do you have any experience with branded titles, like rebuilt titles?
Yeah, so there was a time when I spent about a year. I did spend a year with a guy who specifically all we did was heavy Copart. These cars were all totals, and we started in the back of a paint shop in a parking lot, literally in a parking lot in Cleveland. We worked in the snow, and it was absolutely miserable. But within a year, we had enough money to buy a $250,000 property.
Wow.
A shop. Yeah. So, but I'm going to be honest with you, this was in 2018. Today, with the values that the way that they are, I would, if we declare titles, we would make double that.
Okay. So you don't look for rebuilt titles then?
Yeah, I don't care if the car's been wrecked, if it's been flooded. I don't care. I just need the paperwork to be good.
Okay.
I've done them all. I've done big frame jobs and floods, and it doesn't matter to me. But I need the title to say that the car is good to go. It's clear, because the people, when you deal with people want the assurance of, thinking that they're getting a good deal. Not only they're getting a good deal, but when a person goes and buys a car from you, they're, they have worries. They're, they don't want to, they don't want to buy a piece, a back vehicle. So you want to, the entire time when they come, they'll see a car. If you do your due diligence and you properly did the recon, and the car is clean and the car is in excellent shape, you're trying to, the entire time you're trying to kind of create this rapport or relationship, and people are nervous, and rightfully so. An average person out there can't tell if a car's been hit or if a car's been flooded. All they can tell is, okay, I'm going to buy this car, and then first time I take it to the shop, it's $2,500 bill. They don't want that. They want to make the decision that lets them sleep comfortably at night, and that's part of your job, is you're trying to create that rapport when you get there. You want to, because
the thing I run into with rebuilds these days is there's less opportunity to get them insured. Have you run into that problem at all?
No, I haven't. We never had any of those issues. Even financing, there's such a market opportunity now to where, you could even get financing. Dealers are financing these people with these rebuilds. Insurance is not an issue at all in my state, at least, or either of the states I resided in. So,
I believe I had my insurance with Allstate. I think Allstate and possibly State Farm both won't insure rebuilt titles anymore. That doesn't mean that nobody will, obviously, but those are a couple big companies that just said we want to get out of that.
Now, keep in mind that's insurance is a state thing, so that's all going to depend on the state. But I have actually not only owned rebuilds, but I've had claims where rebuild cars that I've owned have been in accidents with State Farm and with other major carriers, and they've actually the cars got rebuilt. Like there were accidents, and we made a claim, and they went ahead and brought them in, and they rebuilt them again. So
I don't question that they would stand behind their policy. This was relatively new last year, I believe. That my agent was an Allstate guy, and I was calling to check on it. But I just throw that out there, not to stop people from doing it, just to make it another consideration. If you're looking at a rebuilt title in your state, you might check around to see what your customers are going to run into, and then the question, given that, and I mean, I agree that they're mostly looking at the car and listening to you, and you're building rapport. That's definitely true. But how much do you factor in if that car's got a rebuilt title? Do you offer less for it? Do you expect to sell it for less?
So because of the multiples of the auction these days, you really can't. I think in a good example, there's like a Facebook group called uh, wholesale auto, like Moda wholesale auto, wholesale autos.
Mm-hmm.
I think something like that. Either way, or auto wholesale club. And then if you go into that group, there's a lot of gentlemen there that deal with like rebuilds, not only rebuilds but
Mm-hmm.
do it properly. So they're selling premium rebuilds, premium Escalades, premium Tahoes, Porsches, and what they tell me is their rebuild factor where the price is adjusted is like as little as 10 to 15%.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's because the multiples of these auctions are so high. So, the reason why I don't deal with rebuilds is because I find that it complicates my ability to generate the rapport with the customer.
Okay.
That's the only reason.
So you prefer to stay away from them?
Just because I like to have clean paper.
Okay. Okay. I see what you're saying. I wasn't really following. I know you. So you've had success with them, but at this point in time, you're saying that all things being equal, you would steer away from them.
Yeah, and like I said, I don't mind cars that are wrecked. I don't mind cars that are flooded. I just need the paperwork to say that it's clean. That's it. That's my preference. Yeah, I don't mind big jobs. I don't mind big frame jobs. I don't mind
Okay.
any of that. But in an effort to, if I'm going to do the work, I'd like to be able to, not spend a lot of effort generating rapport with the customer. The customer is going to always ask you, is the title clear?
Mhm.
Every car I've ever sold, the customer always asks, is the title clear?
Mhm.
And to say yes, it makes the deal just so much smoother. Just like when they say, hey, does the car run? Hey, are there any problems? Hey, is the check engine light on? No,
Mhm.
check engine light's not on. No, there's no problems. The car drives great. The title is clear.
Mhm.
The customers made a decision to purchase a car before they even get there. So it
Right.
makes the deal very smooth. You buy at the right price, you do the correct recon so that the sale is smooth,
Mhm.
and the money at that point doesn't matter.
Mhm.
You'll get the money.
Mhm.
So
Okay. Yeah. All great advice. Now you've already you said 5 to 7 thousand. That's kind of your sweet spot. That's where you want to sell.
yeah, because you're avoiding. No, I have sold more. I've sold $10,000, $15,000 trucks. Trucks are a little bit different. People expect to spend money. At least where I'm at, Central Texas we have the highest truck values in the country, I
Mhm.
would say, except maybe like Southern California or something.
Mhm.
So people buy trucks, but I prefer to sell cars where people can buy with cash. I
Sure.
don't need financing. There's not any complicated issues. People are just, 7 grand for a car is pretty much nothing these days. So that's a sweet spot for me.
Mhm. And you've consistently been able to pull $2,500 out in profit per deal.
Of course, it's easier when you're dealing with these larger numbers, because when you take a step down and you start dealing with cars that are maybe 2,500, 3 grand, you're doing the same amount of work,
Mhm.
but the risk is higher, because if you're having an issue with more components failing,
Mhm.
transmission, rear end, maybe a computer, you know, you have to do the same amount of work. You have these expenses, but your sales prices, that's stuck.
Mhm.
You can't change the market. So
Mhm.
it makes more sense to take a step up, especially because the way the market is right now due to inflation, the markets tolerates higher prices. The market tolerates more like
Mhm.
nicer cars. So go ahead and take a step up, because you can have a vehicle where you need a lot of recon, but
Mhm.
the final product is worth it. And that 2,500, like that BMW 135, like you can buy that car for $2,500. I'd rather buy that than buy 3 Dodge Intrepids and try to make $500 on each one. Or like Altimas or something. I don't care about that.
Uh-huh.
I'd rather sell the more premium car, work on one car, not 3 cars, reduce my risk,
Mhm.
and get that big paycheck and have a happy customer.
Yeah, that's very interesting, and I'm learning as I'm as I'm asking you, but I think that's something I've found that over the years I've got to keep listening, keep watching, and keep learning, because what worked in 2014 doesn't
Yeah.
necessarily work in
The
2022.
market has changed so much since 2012 when I started. It's changed so much, Mr. Lee. It's
Mhm.
people are no longer looking for that 1,500, $2,000 car. The customers that you deal with in that $5,000, $7,000 price range, unless you're selling like rebuilds, you're dealing with a person that's straight up.
Mhm.
It's easy to establish trust with them. They've looked at many cars. They're not desperate.
Mhm.
They're aware of the market. It's very important to deal with a customer that's aware of the market and aware of the prices, because
Mhm.
you know they, this might be their third, fourth, fifth car they've seen, and they've walked away from others. They're realizing, okay, I need to spend that little bit more money, and that goes in your pocket, and that's important. You don't want to sit there and explain to them the market. You want people to show up and they know what they're buying. So
Exactly. Yeah. Now you this is not what you do full time, and this is a side hustle. Is that
sure,
correct?
it's scalable to that level, but I'd rather talk about it when I did it full time,
Hmm.
because that's what your listeners are going to want to know is, hey, how do I,
Hmm.
what's an optimal way to do this? I have,
Hmm.
today I have $3,000. In a month, I'd like to have $5,000. How do I do it? And that's kind of what I'd like to help them with.
Sure. And so, what's your realistic goal as far as how many vehicles are you trying to do right now?
Okay, so
Per month, per year?
for if I'm going to do this full time, like I'm going to try to pay rent with it or pay my mortgage with it,
Hmm.
I'm going to try to buy 3 cars a month, and I'm going to try to sell 2 cars a month. I'm
Hmm.
going to want at least $10,000 in operating cash flow. What does that mean?
Hmm.
You're going to want 5 grand in cash, and you're going to want $5,000 in credit cards,
Hmm.
credit card limit that's not used. And it's very easy to do. All you have to do is apply to 3 or 4 credit cards. You'll get $1,200 each. If you're starting from nothing, I would certainly recommend Capital One. Is what I started with.
Hmm.
You have 5,000 in cash, for which you can buy your first vehicle, and then you have your $5,000 in recon money that you use your credit card to basically purchase anything that you need from the junkyard,
Hmm.
or from if you got to go get an alignment or something, or pay a windshield guy, you can do that with a credit card.
Hmm.
And a lot of these are nowadays, it's like no interest for a year, no interest for 18 months. I mean, these are beautiful instruments. Some of them even give you free money to use, like $200-300 just to put money on the credit card. It's
Right.
it's amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, if you follow the 45-day rule and you sell that car, I mean, you shouldn't be paying any interest at all.
That's
At
that's
all.
that's another great thing for that 45. I think that might have stuck in my head, part of that, because now honestly I use my credit cards a little. I try to do everything with all cash, but it is
Yeah, no, no
amazing.
way.
Yeah, we're really better off using the credit card with, and I pay everything I can with a credit card, pay it all off because they're
Yeah,
giving me extra money. It's funny to me. I every now and I look and I got extra money that they gave me. And I never pay any interest. Uh,
not only that, Mr. Lee, every month you pay that consistently.
mhm.
They, within 3 to 4 years, you ask for an increase.
Sure.
Within 2 to 3 years, I guarantee you'll have $10,000 in our card. You'll have
Oh
ten
yeah.
thousand dollars in our card. You'll go out. You can do a lot of recon. You could have 3, 4, 5 cars
Hmm.
going through and each one is $2,500. I mean,
Hmm.
you're selling those 2 cars a month. That's 5 grand. So that's five. That's profit. 5 grand. So 5 times 12. That's $60,000. That's I don't care what anybody else says. You're doing way better than an average accountant.
And I think if people who have listened to me, and thank you for everybody who listens to me all the time. It's pretty cool that's a fact. They've heard me talk about debt. I try to avoid debt like the plague, but we're not really talking about debt here. We're talking about just using somebody else's money, literally, and rolling it over and being cautious that we're not getting in a position where we're having to pay interest. And that's just smart. And it took me a long time to figure out how to get that smart. So I credit a lot of what I know about money to my son, who's a damn genius engineer here in town. But I still personally try to use cash all the time. But I think what Vic's telling you right here is a really valuable tool. And I encourage you to look into that. And remember, on the flipping forum, we can interact with each other and ask questions about this stuff. And that's part of why I put that out there. And it's so cool that we've got folks like you, Vic, and last week Sam from Poland actually was on talking to me about the way that he approaches car flipping, which is a little bit different than your approach. Well, probably a lot different, but both ways work, and I just love the fact that we're bringing value added to the listening audience at Flipping Genius and on in the group too. Now, so you don't really finance. You pay cash for all your buys. You're only putting credit cards, using credit cards just to finance the reconditioning.
Yes, correct. And the reason why, there's a multitude of reasons why, but when you get into financing instruments like floor plan,
Right.
and things like that, it just puts too much pressure on you. These people are extremely intelligent people.
Mhm.
They're going to get their money and their interest. So I don't try. I'm not gonna. I'm trying to reduce my overhead. So I'm gonna buy every car that I can with cash, and I'm going to buy every part that I can with credit card. And maybe we could segue to sourcing, keeping track and sourcing from this conversation. As you go out and buy parts, there's a gentleman on YouTube.
Mhm.
His name is Lucky, and he has a YouTube channel, and it's Car Life or Dealer Life or something. Give me 1 second. But he's a dealer. He's a buy here, pay here, or he had a dealership, buy here, pay here dealership out in Automotive Life,
Mhm.
out in Las Vegas. And that is one of the most turbulent, but also very exciting markets in the United States for used automobiles.
Mhm.
So what Lucky does is specifically, he has a lot of videos on his channel, Automotive Life,
Mhm.
where he goes out and he'll buy these buckets, cars under $1,000, and he'll
Uh-huh.
get triple, quadruple on them easily. And this is like next level, this guy. But
Mhm.
what he does is he writes the price of the car on the windshield on the top right, and
Mhm.
on the bottom, he's going to write the market price minus 10 to 15, maybe sometimes 20%
Mhm.
on the bottom. And every part that he buys for the car, he writes it on the windshield. He
Mhm.
writes it on the windshield, and that gives him a perfect picture of like where he's at,
Mhm.
what he needs to do. That's extremely important. I can explain how extremely important that is. If you can do it in your head, that's great.
Mhm.
If you can't, I highly recommend the windshield thing.
Mhm.
Um, this guy's been doing it for 20 years, and um, I would say check out his YouTube channel for sure,
Yeah,
Automotive
yeah,
Life.
absolutely. Yeah, by the way, anything like this, I'll put links on it to the
Yeah,
on our show notes, and any place where you listen to Flipping Genius. There'll be, if I can't put a link there, I'll just actually put the link you can cut and paste, because some of them don't allow me to put links on there, because there
mhm.
are so many great things. YouTube, I know, is full of some great flipping things, and Lucky's one of them I watch. So that's a great one. I appreciate that.
What's amazing is, as a YouTuber, if you ask him a question, but the video's got to be new, like he just posted it, and you can ask off topic, he'll answer.
Mhm.
He'll literally answer. It's
Mhm.
it's mind blowing. So if you have a simple question, if you can break it down to a couple sentences, like, hey, I got this car, or I
Mhm.
got this amount of money, what should I be doing? He'll answer. And you actually, there's consultants that make, they charge $300-400 an hour to be able to do that, and he'll do it for free. So I can't, you
That's
know,
pretty awesome. Uh,
yeah. Oh, he was incredible.
Now, I think you mentioned somebody else. Are there other YouTube channels that you would if you were sitting down to learn more, that you would watch, or that you watch regularly?
Absolutely. So another way if we could take a step back to sourcing,
Mhm.
I watch Haggerty. Haggerty, Haggerty has this guy called Tom Cotter, and Tom Cotter posts. He published quite a few books. I think he was some serious executive or something during, before he retired.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know what the net worth of this guy is. It's got to be in the millions, but
Mhm.
he specializes in driving around,
Oh yeah,
l-
yeah, yeah.
looking barn find hunter,
Uh-huh.
looking for classic cars
Mhm.
like all over the country. And his approach, I have done his approach to where I would be driving around neighborhoods
Uh-huh.
looking for cars with flat tires with leaves on them, that kind of thing. And
Yeah.
you know,
We're going to take a break for a minute, and when we come back, Vic will share how he has used some of these same techniques to great success in multiple regions of the United States. And by the way, look for links to the information that Vic and I mentioned during this episode in the show notes wherever you are listening, and at flippinggenius.com. Now I'm going to grab a jug of Kickapoo Joy Juice, and when we get back, Vic is going to share more of how he has turned what he has learned into a greater net worth. Hey, thanks for listening. And I want you to consider becoming a flipping team member. And when you do, we will share with you a startup kit that is valued at $250 or more. And each month, you'll get our Flipping Team Member Success Pack, which is also designed to help you make more money. Each and every month, you'll get more bonus material and other information because you're a Flipping Team member. Go to flippinggenius.com and click on the Flipping Team Member button to learn more.
I'd go up and I'd knock on the door and I'd say, hey, what's up with this car? And when I was living in, Texas, we don't really have neighborhoods here, but when I was living in the Northeast, oh my gosh, it will blow your mind, some of these cars that I found, because they're not a marketplace. There's no competition. These cars are just sitting there. I've bought, now he goes after classics, but you can find late model cars that way and you can make a ridiculous amount of money doing this, way more than 2,500. I got a Jeep Liberty one time. It was a 2003 Liberty. It had 114,000 miles on it, and they parked it. The Jeep had a reman transmission, 3.7, whatever. The valve body was going out, so he even had the receipt in a glove box. So went to the transmission shop that reman the transmission. The guy sold me the Jeep for $250. I went to the transmission shop. He remanned the tranny again for free, and I sold that car for like $4,000 in the span of 30 days.
That's beautiful.
Yeah,
that's Haggerty. Haggerty is
Barn Find Hunter. And like I said, he goes after classics, but late models are no different. They're no different. People you'd be surprised what people throw away. It's mind blowing, and stuff would just sit there, and nobody wants it because it looks dirty, or the tires are flat, or maybe it'll have a cosmetics, or maybe it was hit when it was parked. And
that's my number one way to find vehicles. Most successful. I buy more vehicles from the auction, but the ones I make the most money on are the ones I find. And Vic, I walk about, I would say 4 to 5 miles at least every other day for exercise, and I try to do a different neighborhood every time. And I'm constantly I'm an old football coach. I keep my head on a swivel. That's what we used to always tell everybody. And I carry Post-it notes that say I buy cars, I buy houses, and I got a business card. I own the domain randybuyscars.com, and I'll knock on doors. I'll do that, and I'm looking for flat tires. I'm looking for expired tags. I'm looking for grass growing up around tires. Yeah, that has worked so well. Now I am typically looking for what I'm looking for, which is I'm still doing business in that old marketplace where I'm selling the cheap stuff, and I think I need to step up my game personally, because I love what you're saying. I would like to make more money per car, and I think that's the way to do it. Now I want to jump back. I've heard you mention BMW and Lincoln and Cadillac. Are you really like to go after the premium car? Is that your MO?
Yeah, I love Hondas, Mr. Lee. That's like my favorite. Hondas, especially premium Hondas, anything, Odyssey, Acura has Premium Act TL, things like that. Ridgelines, that's my bread and butter. But these cars, people don't want to let them go. So I have right now, I bought an Odyssey. It was a 2008. It's a base Odyssey, non-VTEC, so it's like the EX. I bought it for 120,000 original miles. It needed some motor work, so I pulled the motor out. But you're not going to find deals like that every day. It's so when I can't find Hondas, I will go after just the most premium cars. It'll be BMW. Before I moved to Texas, I was doing a lot of Volkswagens, diesels, TDIs stuff, as well as some of the later gen stuff. But the Volkswagens in Central Texas, nobody wants them. I don't know what it is. So I switched to Hondas, and the Hondas seem to sell very, very well, and I could always find deals. But yeah, before that, I dealt exclusively in Volkswagen, and that's, if you find your niche, you find out one manufacturer, two manufacturers that you're comfortable with, and you can get parts for. You get parts cars easily. Yeah, especially BMW is like the people. No shops want to work on them. Remember that high labor rate. If you have a high labor rate in your area, it's very, very easy to find deals because a shop will just, a person will go and they'll say, hey, there's something wrong with my car, and the shop will turn them down. They'll go to another shop and the shop will turn them down. They'll go to another shop will turn them down. And it's mind-blowing because some of these repairs are not complicated. It's just a car. If you have a good scanner, Max Assist or a Launch, you got to invest in tools. But if you have those scanners, I can't tell you how many Minis I've sold, how many BMWs, how many Volkswagens. I have VAGCOM. It's when they run right, people pay, and when they run like crap, people give them away.
You're right. Yeah, that's some good advice, and it's something that people have not heard from me. So I like what you're saying. Now you got that 45-day goal, which is just, in your mind it's pure common sense. In my mind, it's a new level of genius, because I've even though I've been around the block, I haven't gone all the way around the block apparently. You've got to be efficient in your whole process, and on the sales side. So now you've got a vehicle that's ready to sell. You've got it. I'm going to skip ahead, and I'm going to assume that you've really detailed this thing and made it look as good as possible. What is your sales process?
Okay, first and foremost, and this answers a lot of questions that you get in your group, and I hope people have listened long enough to pick up on this. What are the tools that are required? What do I got to buy? You see these comments or these questions all the time. What do I need to sell cars? You need these things. You need a shop vac, 100%. I don't care what. You need a garden hose. You need a garden hose to wash the car. You can't do it without it. You could go to a car wash. It's not the same. 2-bucket wash. It's not the same. And you need a steamer, 100%. Now, Home Depot rents a product called Karcher Spot Remover. It's a extractor. It's a steam extractor. Basically, you put hot water in it, and it's a vacuum. It'll spray hot water out of a carpet, and it'll pull it out. They rent it for $20 a day. So every car that I do, I have a shop vac that I bought. It's a decent. Don't go in there and buy like whatever $19.99 rigid piece of crap. Like, go get that credit card, get a decent shop vac. And shop vac the car, pull the seats out, and you have to use the steamer. You rent the steamer for $20, and you steam the seats, you wash the dash, you steam the carpets. Every time that's, I don't care. You could have not a single screwdriver in your house, but you have to have these tools. You have to have 2 buckets, a garden hose, a steamer, and a shop vac. So it's $20. Every car that I do, I use a steamer. Every car that I do, I wash the exterior with 2-bucket wash. You have to with a garden hose. And every car that I do, I shop vac the interior, everything. So that's fundamental. That's the minimum. Second thing I try to do is, when people approach me, another thing, hubcaps. I learned this like way back when I was first starting. I had maybe $1,000 in my checking account. I didn't even have an air compressor. I was working at a quick oil change place. I was stupid. I didn't know anything. But this manager, all he did was back then, and this was 2012, 2013, 2012. He'll go out and he'd buy $1,000 cars. And he told me this. He says, if your car has steel wheels on it, you put hubcaps on it. He's like, I don't care what, you got to do the hubcaps. So the minimum is hubcaps. You do your mat. You got to have mats, hubcaps, steam the interior, shop vac, and you wash the car with a garden hose. So yeah, those things you need at the minimum. And I try during the sales process, when a customer approaches me and they look at the car, I try whatever, as much as I can. I try to never be in a position where I say, well, for the price, it is what it is. Or for the price, what do you expect? I try to never be like backed into a quarter. So I try to make sure check engine light's not on. I try to make sure that the car can pass emissions. I try to make sure that the tires are decent. I try to make sure that these things are taken care of. Yeah, the car might be scratched up. You might have Bondo popping out, whatever. If you're starting out, these things are going to happen. You might have a cracked windshield. Like for a while, every car I sold had a cracked windshield because I didn't have a windshield guy. Now I found one. So yeah, the minimum, every sale that I do, I wash the car, I steam the carpets, I shop vac the carpets, I steam the carpets, and I do the I make sure the car has hubcaps, I make sure it has mats. So that's at the minimum. And I try to make sure the people can pass. If you have emissions, people can pass emissions at the very minimum. So that you have 30 days to do that from the time you buy basically to the time you sell. So hopefully that's enough time. Hopefully that answers your question.
And then when we're ready to sell, are you using Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist? What's your primarily the tool you use to advertise the vehicle?
I've done three, all three things. I've used Craigslist like extensively, like a religion. I've also had a real property where I had a lot of foot traffic. Okay. And recently I've been using Marketplace. So out of all three, Marketplace is the best. This is what I do. I make sure the car is priced correctly, 10 to 15% under average value. Second thing I do is I use what's called Facebook Boost. If you don't use Facebook, you link your PayPal to it and you gotta pay. It's like $5 a day. And what I do is I do it like this. I do Boost Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Every week, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. That's every week you pay $15 to list the car. Why I do it on the weekend, I don't know. I had no good results doing it during the weekday, but in the weekend, the views are insane. Post engagements are excellent. I usually with this process, I sell the car in 2 or 3 weeks if it's priced correctly. Keywords, I do notice that you kind of asked about keywords. Facebook does not really do keywords. What they do is they pump your ad based on one, boost, and two, what your car is and what your car is priced at versus like basically KBB. They farm out KBB and they'll check your car value against KBB as well as the market. So if your car's like really, really expensive or way over that, when you put it in the app, it'll show you the range. And if it's way over that, they're not going to pump your ad. But if you are in the middle / towards the lower range, you organically get that, they'll kind of show your ad more and then you'll boost it too. So that's what works for me. And that usually meets my 45-day criteria if there's a demand for that car.
Now, going back to the first thing you said there, 10 to 15% under market value. Where are you getting the market value?
So when there's 2 ways you can do it. One, if you're lazy, if you use the Facebook app, when you list the car, it'll show you the market. It'll be like on the bottom of the app on the screen. It'll be like, hey, this car has a range price from here to here. So you basically take the highest price minus 10% of that. So if the car is like $7,000 highest price, so you take $7,000 minus 700 and you put that in, and that seems to like trick the algorithm into like,
I see.
Yeah, I don't like a lot of noobs. They'll go out there and they'll put dollar or they'll put 1, 2, 3, 4, or they'll constantly change. That doesn't do anything. It's not like Craigslist. Like Craigslist, I remember you delete the ad or change the price or something and rebump the ad. It doesn't work that way anymore either way. But Facebook, don't mess with it. Leave it because it messes with the algorithm, and every time you change it, it actually stops showing your ad. So you don't want to do that. You want to leave it because it's just better. The non-lazy way is you go out and you actually look and see what cars are selling for, and you look and you look and you look, and everything that looks like a good deal you save. And then when you save, you'll go and you'll check on it like every day and see when the saved items sell, and that gives you an idea of how long things take to sell and what are they selling for specifically. And if you're not sure, you can always message the seller, and sometimes they'll even tell you, hey, I sold it for this much, and worked out, or I had a good experience. And you can kind of tell them if they're really crabby about it. Chances are they either traded it or they had a poor experience. So don't try to sell it for that.
Yeah. What about Kelley Blue Book? Do you use that at all?
Yeah, I do, especially on nicer cars. I'll check. I try to buy a trade-in. Basically, if the car doesn't need a lot of recon, if it just needs like basics, I try to buy a trade-in and sell good or very good. Try to arbitrage that too. But with the cars where that matters, you're gonna start competing against buy here, pay here's, like your 10-year-old trucks or something, 12-year-old trucks. You're competing against buy here, pay here's. A lot of these guys are doing 1,500 down. So these cars, there's not a lot of buyers, and chances are you're not gonna, especially because today, the way things are today with high trade-ins and stuff, you're gonna have a hard time buying things at trade-in. Trying to do that with like a 2006 or a 2008, you're really just wasting your time. So that has once those cars are like over that threshold, you need to check the actual market rate So, or even older, like you buy 90s Honda, you need to check the market rate and see what stuff's selling for, because KBB will say one thing, but reality is it could be twice as much, 3 times as much. And, when you're sourcing these cars, it's important that you pay the guy you're buying from the correct price, because that's what's going to put you in the ballpark or put you in a game when bidding against it. Because you see these guys, they'll be like, "Oh, I'll give you $500." I mean, it's a joke. These guys aren't making any money, or everything they're buying is just low tier stuff you don't want to mess with. You want to pay the correct price when you buy, and you want to get the correct amount of money when you sell, and that just comes with experience. And if you're aggressive, you're going to lose money. And if you're kind of patient and you step back and you look at the market and you're willing to kind of wait it out, then you won't really lose money. But it all depends on how aggressive you are as a person. So
that this I think I know the answer to this, but do you ever finance anybody? Do you ever take payments?
No, I don't do any of that. So it's all cash. I don't. I wish. It seems like a really interesting thing. Another thing is, like, there's a lot of guys making a killing, or it seems like on Turo and other car rental places. It seems like that seems like a really huge potential. They got these new apps. It's not even Turo. It's like where you rent them so they can drive Uber or something.
Yeah.
That's, gosh, I mean, because you got to think, like, yeah, they might wreck it, but if the car's already been wrecked and it's still a clear title and you kind of squeeze into that 10-year-old car range, that's really good potential to make money. And then, you run it there for a year or two and then you sell it, and it's almost kind of like renting it as a taxi, and you don't get the title thing. And it's an incredible amount of, it's incredible potential for getting money, and you're not hitting that repossession regulation or that interest regulation that a lot of, like in Texas, you can't charge more than 20% for buy here, pay here. So yeah, there's not really a lot of, that market's pretty much priced out. Even a lot of like really low end buy here, pay here's, they're all switching to the rental model. So
that's interesting. I just actually yesterday noticed I don't have it in front of me because I had to turn my phone off. You guys wouldn't bother me while I'm talking to you. There's a gentleman who's an expert in the buy here, pay here that's in our forum group, and he posted a really interesting video. If you're in the forum, guys, check that out if you're interested in the buy here, pay here model, because I just thought those guys were rolling in dough, but they've had to make some adjustments. You've got to keep thinking about things. And another thing about the financing side, now I've been a licensed dealer for, I don't know, 13, 14 years now, and actually work part-time for my local state association, and real good friends with the state association president. He'll probably come on an upcoming episode, and we're going to talk about financing from a different standpoint, because I don't want to hold the financing, but he's lining up folks here in the state of Alabama who will finance our deals. So that it could be something pretty interesting, because I will have all the benefit and none of the risk, which is what I'm always looking for. What about Vic? What about negotiating? Is there? So let me ask a more solid question than that. So you've got a vehicle, you're asking $6,000 for it, and I come to you and I say the thing that everybody always says. Let's role play this a little bit. What's your bottom dollar, Vic?
Make offer.
And so you don't negotiate with yourself. Is that what?
No, you gotta. Okay, so it's all rapport. It's a rapport. If you do your due diligence and you bought the car right, you're sitting on $2,500 in like potential cash you could put in your pocket. And this is profit, so you got room to breathe. But if you want to bounce some of these role playing, I love that you did that. Go ahead, because I've heard them all. It's like, what's the least you'll take? I don't know, boss. Make offer.
Let's go back to that. This is interesting. So you said make offer, and thinking, well, see, Vic, you're asking $6,000 for this thing, and I'm thinking, I'm looking, and I don't think it's worth more than $4,000.
Okay, so because I look at the marketplace a lot, I'll just send them some. I had a guy. I had this I had this nice Acura, and this guy, and it's $7,000, and the guy offers me $3,500. So I was just looking at a Corolla with 170,000 miles on it. Acura had 110. It was mint condition, all leather, everything. The guy offers me 3,500. So I just sent him that Corolla, and he's just like, "What about your car?" I'm like, "Buy what you can afford, boss." You know, you're not gonna. The reason why you do this, is you have the opportunity to basically tell people to, you have the opportunity to tell people that you don't want to do business with them.
Amen.
If you wanted to just sell cars, you can go get a job at Kia and you can listen to people's problems your entire day, but you're doing this for yourself. The one benefit that you have of working for yourself is telling people that you don't want to do business with them in any way that you see fit that day. And it's a beautiful thing. So
it's one of my favorite things.
yeah. Oh, there you go. See, I love that. That's why I do this. I love it. So that's, this treat yourself well, make sure you get paid, be flexible and do your due diligence, and you'll be able to find that middle ground with the customer, but you gotta pay yourself. And if you're doing this full time, you're not making $4,000 a month, you're doing something wrong.
Now, let me, and I know you're pressed for time, so I don't want to, I wanted to get to this last thing. Vic is a trained accountant, which is he comes to us with some information besides everything he's already talked about, that some of our members from our group, some of the listeners have reached out to me and asked me questions about accounting practices. And my accounting is fairly complex, as I own a variety of businesses still. Vic, can you tell them or give them a little bit of advice on how they can stay out of trouble as far as the way that they report their income?
Okay, so if you're doing this part-time, I'm going to be honest with you. And you have like a W-2 filing or something, you got a job, or maybe you have like some other business, you file Schedule C, you're going to be subject to an audit, 100%. So the biggest thing, if you're doing this full-time and you're not filing returns, then technically, believe it or not, you're actually like much better off. Now, this first and foremost, Mr. Lee here, as well as me, I'm not offering you tax advice. 100%. Do not use this for tax advice. If you need tax help, you're going to go and talk to a CPA. You're going to sign a contract. You're going to pay them $300 an hour for their time. You're not going to use this as tax advice. But I'm going to tell you what my experience is. If you try to file, if you go to an accountant, prepare, and you tell them I was involved in a business activity of selling cars, the first thing that they're going to do is file a Schedule C for you, where you're going to try to deduct all your little expenses for every car. Okay, if you're not a licensed dealer and you get audited, the first thing they're going to do is they're going to disavow your expenses. 110%. You're going to take your gross receipts. Okay, in fact, it's going to be worse than that. They're going to go to your bank account and they're going to check every cash deposit, and all those cash deposits per IRC 61. If you are not, like, if those cash deposits are in your bank account, I don't care if you got the money from grandma, it's taxable income. It's taxable income. So do not, if you're not a licensed dealer, do not file a Schedule C. If you don't have your license, do not file a Schedule C, period. You're going to file what's called a Schedule D, capital gains. For each car, you're allowed to deduct your basis, which means you bought a car for $1,000, you sold it for $2,000. Your basis is that $1,000 plus the delivery fee of the car. So if you got it from the auction or something, you're allowed to say, okay, like whatever, I paid a toll fee. Make sure you keep track of that. That's part of your basis. Okay, your engines, transmissions, your recon, all that stuff, you can't deduct that on the Schedule D. So your basis is your delivery plus your purchase, and then the sale price is, sale price minus basis is your gain, and it's going to be either short term if you sold it under a year plus a day, it's short term, and if it's longer than that, it's long term capital gains. And those have different tax rates. Another benefit of that is you don't get charged SE tax, that's self-employment, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid on your Schedule D. Tax rates are a little bit lower. But if you file a Schedule C, you're not a licensed dealer, you're expensing your cost of goods sold. When you get audited, that revenue agent is going to ask you, hey, show me your dealer's license, and you don't have one. You're going to be in rough shape. So always think of it as like, okay, you're depositing your cash, you're making your credit card payments. IRS is going to be able to see that when they audit you. When you file a tax return, expect to be audited. Not only 1% of taxpayers get audited, but you know,
You you'll get to be the one.
I guarantee, especially if you sit there and you tell them, hey, I made 10% or less profit. I made 10% or less profit. If you're paying yourself on a W-2 or a 1099 off that Schedule C, or I can guarantee you will be audited. I can, especially if you have like, you know, north of $60,000 to $100,000 in gross receipts. I guarantee you'll be audited. I can guarantee you that. And they're gonna summons your bank statements, and every deposit into your bank account will be taxable income. So if you can't, first thing is, if you want to avoid the process, you don't, you know, and you're doing this full time, don't file a tax return. Like that's, you know, you reduce your risk of being audited. But if you can't sleep at night doing that, because that is fraud,
Right.
you have to file a Schedule D. So when you do get audited, they'll be like, okay, I see you're selling cars. This is what you bought the car for. This is what you sold it for. Okay, that makes sense. And IRS doesn't care if you have a dealer's license or not when it comes to that. You'll just be paying taxes on your profits without consideration for your cost of goods sold, which is your recon, your motors, transmissions, you know, brakes, whatever you bought for the car to fix it up. There'll be no consideration. That'll be the most logical thing I can imagine that you would do to try to kind of avoid problems in the long run.
That's good input. And like Vic said, he's just having a conversation with me. He's not your new.
Yeah, do not use this for tax advice. And when you go to your prepare, do not tell them you're operating a business, because they don't care if you. They don't. That's not their job to care. They'll file Schedule C for you. And when you get audited, you're gonna pay them $1,200 to $1,500 in representation, and you lose.
Right.
You'll lose because the IRS is gonna be like, well, you know, 162A, ordinary necessary business expenses. Oh, you're not an actual business. Okay, well, sorry.
Yeah. Well, that's good stuff. We don't mean to scare the hell out of everybody, but if you don't know the truth, the truth will set you free, as they say. But that can be pretty scary. You got to do things the right way. Vic, man, I know you got other stuff on your schedule, and I really appreciate you taking the time to spend with us. I'm going to invite everybody to join the car flipping forum. If you've got questions there, Vic's a member too. He may reach out and answer some questions there. Please share your information with each other. That's really what we're trying to create, a way for all of us to make more money. And Vic, if you hold on the line just for a second, I got a little gift I want to get to you, but I want to get your address after we close the show. Hey, everybody, let's work together. Let's make some money. Let's all become flipping geniuses.